to my channel. My name is Megan Ridgel. If you are new here, if you are returning for another video, thank you guys so much. You're appreciated, and I'm so excited that you're joining me today. I'm in my car because I wanted to drive down to the boardwalk that's near my house, and it's beautiful outside today, but it was a great place to just stop and make a quick video. In this episode, we're going to talk about what is a reliable resume, what it should look like, what should be on there, and then what recruiters look for when we're looking for your resume. I hope that this video helps, so let's go ahead and just jump in. So for starters, guys, you want to make sure that you are building a very strong resume. Do not lie in your resume, and do not have a short resume. And for those things, I mean, when you're building out your resume, you don't want to just put your job title. You don't want to just put the dates. You need to put all of it, okay? So I want to see, as a recruiter, what I look for and how my resume is actually built. I look for the job title, so what you did when you were there. Were you a cashier? Were you a cook, a driver, whatever the case is? I want to see the dates that you worked there. So it doesn't really necessarily need to be exact months if you can't remember it, because we're all humans, so it happens. I don't remember the exact months of the places that I've worked, but you want to have at least the years. How long were you there? Because that's how we can qualify you, is seeing how many years of experience you have. And then include your company. Now, just as a heads up, employers like myself and HR and recruiters, we do reach out to previous positions to see if what you said was true. So we check your time frame that you were at your previous position. We check your position that you held. So it's important not to lie about how long you've been there and or your job title, because we probably will find that out by calling your employers. And you don't want to start your new potential position out lying to your employers. So make sure that you are very truthful when it comes to what is on your resume. Now, it's really important that you don't just do those things. You don't want to just put your title and how long you were there. It's important that you break down your job descriptions. My suggestion is, if you're looking first of all, you want to have very general job descriptions. So what did you do? If you were a cashier, did you money handle? Did you have good customer service experience? Did you help clean up? What did you do when you were there? Now, it's good to also look at a job that you are applying for and kind of look at their job descriptions on the job listing. So if their job descriptions is saying, they need somebody who's going to help stock as part of the cashier, and you did that at your previous job, you definitely want to include that in your resume, because that's exactly what they're looking for. So it's really important that you dissect and break down every single thing that you did at your job. Now, you don't necessarily want to have a 10-page resume, so you do not need to write, I walked in for the day and opened the door, but you want to put the very important things that are general to the job. So I keep using cashier because that one's a little bit easier, but even for a recruiter, for example, I would write things down like sourced candidates. I did previous positions where I would go out and I would actively recruit for people. Go through candidates and call their previous employers. So all these things that I know as a recruiter, if I was applying for another recruiter position, they would be looking for. You guys really need to make sure that you're breaking down your job titles and, again, being truthful in those, because we will find out if those are something that you didn't do. Now, when you're hired and you can't do those things, maybe you wrote down that you have experience in graphics and you can work in Adobe, and then we hire you and you can't. We don't necessarily need to keep you on the job. So it's important that you are truthful. So speaking of graphics, another thing that I would say that you don't necessarily need to do is, your resume does not need to have pictures. It does not need to have like crazy graphics on there. You don't really need to do that. And the reason being is, ATSs, or applicant tracking systems, is how recruiters get your resumes. And sometimes those resumes can come in a little jumbled up. And that does happen if there's just a lot of things shoved on your resume. So you don't necessarily need to do that. We don't really need to have a picture or previous logos of your previous positions. But the reason it reminded me when I said graphics is because if you're applying for a graphics position, that may be something cool to put on there so you can show off your work. So I think it really just is determined by what position you're applying for, but it's absolutely not necessary. So do not freak yourself out and paranoid yourself and, make yourself worried if you do not have those graphics. It's not necessary, but again, it is cool depending on the position you're applying for. Now that we've talked about what your job description should look like, again, how they should be descriptive, how you should break down your time that you've been there, position, things like that, the graphics, one thing that I would suggest, and I get questions about this when it comes to the reference pages. So yes, employers are going to ask you for references. A lot of the time we do that because we want to know about your previous experience. Sometimes recruiters ask for professional references where it's like previous bosses or coworkers, and sometimes they only ask for personal ones. So it could be your mom or sister or whatever the case is. But I personally leave the references off there, and on the very bottom, I always put references available upon request. And that's just because sometimes people don't update their resumes. Your references may change. There may be differences in who you want to reach out to. So I think it's important to make sure that you kind of know that there is an option for them to be able to call references if they need to, but you don't necessarily have to put it on your page. As far as education goes, so for me personally, I like to put my education section towards the bottom after all of my job descriptions, because I think that it's not necessarily something that they always need. Sometimes jobs have in lieu of, meaning if you don't necessarily have a degree and the job description is requiring it, they may be able to pass that based on your experience. So I typically put that towards the bottom. But when you're doing that, you want to talk about the school that you went to, whether that is high school, if you got a GED, if you have technical experience, or college. You want to put the dates that you were in school, whether you have the degree or not. And again, the same way that we reach out to employers, we're also going to reach out to your educators to see if the degree is accurate. So make sure, again, you're telling the truth and putting those time frames on there as well. So we've talked about your job descriptions, what that should look like. We've talked about your references. We've talked about education. Now I want to talk about the objective, and I left that for very last, although it should be the very first thing on your resume, because this one is one that when I'm helping build resumes, I always see people struggling with what they should put in there, and I think it's super important. I'm going to let you guys in on a tip. Most of us, I'm not going to say all of us, but we as recruiters and hiring teams do not necessarily care about the cover letter anymore. It's not really necessary. And the reason being is because that objective section, which should be at the top of your resume, is a really good and clean and easy area to keep it on the same document. That way you do not need to recreate a cover letter for it. So that's basically what your objective needs to be. It needs to be a strong opening, basically to tell us about you. I will say it doesn't need to be this long, doesn't need to take up most of your page. It should probably only be about 5 to 10 sentences, something very strong. For me personally, when I did mine, I think mine says something like, I'm a passionate and driven HR representative in recruiting with 4 years of experience at the time. In recruiting, I have experience with this software, this software, this software, or whatever the case was. I think it's really awesome to put that you're passionate and that you are driven. You want to use some adjectives, you want to use some verbs, whatever the case is that you can think of that comes to your mind to explain you, especially when it comes to the work that you're doing in that field. Maybe a couple words. So I am a blank. And then you want to talk about, so are you a passionate recruiter? Are you a caring cashier? Are you an excited hotel representative? I don't know. Whatever it is, that's what you want to make sure that you're putting in there. And you want to make sure that's the very first sentence in your objective. Then you want to talk about maybe saying with blank years of experience in this. So again, I said with 4 years of recruiting experience. I also said with 2 years of management experience. So that way, that objective, that opening sentence says, okay, this is a passionate person. She's been in recruiting. She's had management experience. And that right there is the very first thing that we see when we open a resume. So I'm like, wow, this is great. This person could be an awesome fit for this position based on their objective. And now I can go down through and actually look at the rest of their resume, and hopefully everything matches up on the job description. So that objective really is your opportunity to wow us. One thing I would say to definitely not do is you do not need to just go over your job description again in there. Don't say, I've worked here for 5 years, I've worked here for 4 years, whatever the case is. You don't need to continue to go over what we're already going to see, because that's just repetitive and unnecessary. But you do just want to make sure that you are really selling us. Use that as a sales point to really, really sell us who you are and why we should choose you over other candidates. Starting from the top, how your resume should look, you should definitely have your name and your email, contact information up at the very top. My name is super large at the very top, and then I have my email underneath it with my phone number, and that's at the very top. And then under that is the objective. So again, that strong opening sentence to really sell myself for the company. And then I start breaking down my job descriptions based on my job. So I have my job title, where I worked, years of experience, and then all of my job descriptions broken down. Then I jump down to education, where I have my education section, and then I do my references on the very bottom. Under education, you can also add a place in there where it's like, I don't know, certificates or awards or security clearance or whatever the case is that you have. You can also add that under education, or you can do a separate section where you maybe add skills or something. One thing that I will let you in on again as a trick is we as recruiters do keyword searches. So what is that? A keyword search is basically in our applicant tracking system. We have the ability to go in and type, let's say we need somebody with a security plus. So we go in and we can type security plus in our applicant tracking system, and it pulls everybody in the system who has a security plus. So it's important to make sure, especially if you know you're going after certain jobs. For those who do not know, a Security Plus is a certification basically that you can get in IT that is super amazing, and it's great if you have it because it basically means you can do a lot more than people without it. So when we're looking for certain people who need experience with the Security Plus, you know, everything that comes underneath that, we're able to find them pretty instantly. So for example, as a recruiter, I could put all of my applicant tracking system experiences, and I could put ADP, I could put any time clock things like that we've used in previous jobs. And so when they're looking for me, for example, if I put ADP and they type in ADP in their search, they'll find me because ADP is in my resume. Trying to think of other examples. I don't know, maybe if you were a driver and you were a chauffeur somewhere and you put that in your section, then when they find and they look for chauffeurs, they're going to see you. So it's really important to make sure that you use words that you know match the jobs that you're looking for, and put those in your job descriptions as well, because the keyword searches help us so much, and trust me, I use those all the time. So be very mindful about the words that you put in there. Going off of that, you also want to make sure that you put every thing that is like special. So if you have systems with EMR, which are electronic medical record systems, so anything like Credible or whatever the case is, you want to put those in there because that really shows that you really have experience in those fields. You've actually used these softwares, you've used these programs, and you know what you're doing. So to cut to the chase, make sure you put great keywords in there that really exaggerate your experience with really special skills that can be specific to the job. So I think we went over everything that you should have. I also talked about what you should avoid when it comes to the graphics and just kind of overwhelming yourself with pictures and things like that. Another thing I would avoid is a 9-page resume. We did not want to look through that. Trust me, as a recruiter, the reason that we ask for a strong objective and to really have those job descriptions is because sometimes I look through almost 200 resumes a day for my job, and my job's not that big, so you know, it's not a larger company, so you cannot, you know, if you begin to imagine the amount of resumes that we look through a day, we really don't have time to sit down and go through a 9-page resume. And to be honest, a lot of it is repetitive and unnecessary. So I would stick to like a 2 to 4 page resume based on your experience, based on the previous jobs that you've had. It does not need to be 9 pages long, guys. So do not, again, worry yourself. Don't stress yourself out. Don't do too much to yourself. Just really put some information in there that is going to show us why you are the best candidate. You do not need to do an entire essay. And last thing, and then I'm going to get off, is make sure that your information that you put on there is accurate. So for example, my resume that I had before this previous job that I just applied for, had old contact information on it. It had my old email and it had my old phone number, and you could imagine how great that would have been if I didn't update it and they were trying to call me and I didn't get my job. So make sure that your contact information is up to date. Make sure that you go through, you check, you spell check, you make sure that the programs, the softwares, everything that you said you use is correct, it's clean, it's pretty, and that it is to the point, simple, and 100% truthful. I hope that this video helped you guys. Again, I just wanted to do a quick one because I had somebody actually just reach out to me and ask me a resume question, so it popped in my head, and I hope it was helpful. I hope you guys always know how appreciated you are loved, you are cared for, you are seen, you are heard. I hope that you guys have a fantastic week, and I will talk to you guys next time. See ya.